Glinda and HarperAudio Australia present this unabridged recording of Among the Grey Gums, written by Paula J. Beavan and read by Elizabeth Brennan. For Dave, always. History is the canvas on which I paint my stories. Chapter 1. Magpie Flat Stock Camp, Hunter River, October 18, 1842. Lucy Stewart shoved a hank of wet hair from her face and squinted into the rising sun peeking through a break in the clouds. The torrential rain of the night was now only a light drizzle, the worst of the storm driven away by the golden rays of dawn. Soaring on the reins in a fruitless attempt to pull the hard-mouthed coach horse to a halt, her gaze darted from tree to boulder, searching. Her heavy plait flopped wetly onto her shoulder from beneath the hat as she stared in disbelief at the clearing. Blinking away fatigue, the result of riding all night, she tried to make sense of the absence of her team of bullocks and the loaded dray. What the blazes is going on? There was no answer beyond the patter of raindrops falling from the leaves above her. Wet horse, wet clothes, wet earth. Even the air was wet. She wasn't in the mood to go searching for 12 cantankerous bullocks. Smoke rose lazily from the charred stump smouldering in a stone-ringed pile of ashes. The prone figure of Reg Clancy, mail coach driver, along with an empty bottle of rotgut, lay on the ground. Lucy peered into the gloom beneath the trees, searching for the team and for young Joe, her timorous brother-in-law. There was no sign of either. She kicked her feet from the stirrups, her saturated breeches sticking to the sopping saddle, and with a juddering slide dropped to the ground. Where on earth could the beasts be? Joe knew better than to drive them in the rain. She pulled the tired horse after her, leading it to where its mate stood beneath a large dripping grey gum. The tethered horse tossed them an uninterested glance and returned to stand, head low, stolid as it waited for something to change. Lucy made quick work of unsaddling and tying the horse to the tether line before she dished them each a scoop of chaff and attached their nose bags. It might be a bit damp, but the poor things needed a feed, and a glance at the drunken sod on the ground told her he'd not bothered to care for his remaining horse since she'd left the Magpie Flat camp the previous afternoon. She carried the saddle over to the listing mail coach and took in the wheel leaning against a nearby tree. Same as the day before, the broken axle stub and the tools left strewn about on the ground. There was no sign of Joe, nor of Moses, Eli, Samson, and the rest of the bullocks. Not a hint of movement, or even the distant clang of a single bell gave away their position. Jaw clenched, Lucy strode across the soggy ground and stared down at the drunkard snoring peacefully, despite the rain pattering on his red-veined face. How he'd managed to get the contract for the mail, she'd never understand. She aimed a vicious kick at him, but pulled back at the last moment and placed her right foot back on the ground. As much as the man disgusted her, it would do no good whatsoever to lash out. He'd probably not even feel it. Instead, she leaned down and gave his shoulder a good shake. "What?" He squinted up at her, his mouth twisted in a grimace as he pushed up onto one elbow. "Where's Joe?" As if exhausted by the effort of looking at her, he flopped back down. This time she did kick him. Not hard, just enough to rouse him. Little more than a nudge with the toe of her boot. "Hey, don't do that!" "Where is Joe? And my team?" She looked around the clearing again. There was no trace of the passage of a dozen bullocks, but the rain had been torrential for the last few hours of her ride, and going by the sloppy state of the clearing, it had been the same here. "Dunno." He peered around for a moment, as if a team of bullocks might be lurking around somewhere. Then, spotting the empty rum bottle, he grabbed it and tipped it up, trying to squeeze out any last drops. "When did Joe leave?" She bent to the small stack of firewood and, choosing one from the bottom in the hopes it might be a bit dry, stirred the ashes and poked the wood in. She wasn't overly confident of reigniting the fire, only the fact that
Sample complete. Ready to continue?